If you're currently on your O1 visa and are trying to figure out how to apply for the green card, watch this video to get all your questions answered. Hi everyone, my name is Marcus and I'm an immigration attorney. Welcome back to our O1 visa process series. If you haven't already, please comment, subscribe, and like in order to continue our journey on the O1 visa. Today we're going to be talking about how to get a green card through extraordinary ability. So a lot of people think that just because you have the O1 visa, automatically you're going to be able to get a green card in a couple of years. Maybe you heard it from your friends or someone else that that is the case, but unfortunately I'm here to tell you that that is not true. You can't actually get a green card from the O1 visa because the O1 visa is a non-immigrant visa, whereas a green card shows that you intend to stay in the United States permanently and work here permanently. So why is there a confusion? The reason why is because sometimes people apply for what is known as the extraordinary ability green card, and the requirements are very similar, but they're not the same to the O1 visa, and that's why people think that, oh, just because I've been on the O1 visa for a while, automatically I can get the green card. That's not true. Basically, what you need to do is go through the EB1 process, which is like the employment-based green card process. And today we're going to be talking about that process and get through the ins and outs and basically information on how to apply. So the EB1, or the employment-based immigration first preference category, is basically a way for people to apply for a green card in the United States. And there are three types of EB1 visas. First of all, it's the extraordinary ability. Number two, it's outstanding professional or researcher, and number three, it's multinational manager. So today we're going to be mostly focusing on the extraordinary ability part, and we're going to focus on the other two types in a different video. So let's go through the extraordinary ability visa portion. So in order to qualify for a green card under extraordinary ability, there are essentially two parts in terms of filing with immigration. First of all, you need to file Form I-140 with USCIS in order to prove that you are extraordinary, and then assuming that immigration says that you are extraordinary, then you can file for a green card if one is available. So you do that either through consular processing or filing for adjustment of status within the United States. Sometimes you can file it concurrently if a green card is immediately available. Right now it's not, but then things change all the time, so you want to consult with like an immigration attorney to kind of figure out, is it a good idea to file concurrently? Is it even possible to file concurrently, or if you're going to have to split both parts up? So let's talk about the I-140 part. So the I-140 part is the part that talks about whether or not you are extraordinary. And basically there are four things that you're going to need to prove to USCIS before they can determine that you are extraordinary and let you move on to the next part. So let's talk about all four parts now. Part one is that you have to prove that you are going to continue working in your field of extraordinary ability, even after you get your green card. So the way you do this is by providing to immigration things like contracts or maybe deal memos or something from like a letter or a testimonial from someone who might want to hire you in the future in order to prove that you're going to continue to work in the field. So it's very similar to like the O1 visa contracts and itinerary part. The only thing is that you don't have to prove that, it's like a continuous 3 years or anything like that. You just want to have a bunch of contracts or a bunch of testimonials or deal memos proving that you are going to be working in your field in the future. Part two is that you need to prove that you will substantially benefit the United States prospectively. What does that mean? So that means that in the future, after you get your green card, you are going to continue to benefit the United States in one fashion or the other, and this is going to continue for the length of your green card. So the way you do this is, I think the easiest way you can do this is through testimonials, basically, and you're going to want to provide arguments and examples of how you might be able to benefit the United States in the future. An example of this could be, if you're an artist, maybe you hire United States workers to work on your pieces or something like that, and that is possibly how you can prove that you are benefiting the United States financially, benefiting the United States maybe artistically by providing new and original material to the United States or something like that. So basically you just need to prove that you are going to be benefiting the United States in the future after you've gotten your green card. For number three, you then basically have to prove that you are considered extraordinary. And the way this works is that immigration has given you 10 evidentiary criteria. If you can meet 3 out of 10, you are considered extraordinary. So I want to go through all 10 of them and sort of like talk a little bit in terms of like how you can prove and tips and tricks in terms of like getting the application through. So let's go through all 10 now. Number 1, evidence of receipt of lesser nationally or internationally recognized prizes or awards for excellence. Okay, so for this one, it's pretty straightforward. Basically, it means prizes or awards. You're gonna want to prove that you actually have prizes or awards, so either like the certificate or maybe like a photograph of the trophy or something like that, as well as documentation that these awards or prizes are considered internationally or nationally recognized. So you want to sort of talk about people who have won these awards before and why these awards are considered major or significant in your field. Number 2, evidence of your membership in associations in the field which demand outstanding achievement of their members. So in order to meet this criteria, basically you need to be part of an organization that demands excellence from its members. So the way this works is usually organizations that you can just pay to join, like even something like a union, they're not considered. I think they're really talking about organizations that basically pick you to join them. For example, like to be on the voting committee of like the Tony Awards or like the voting committee of the Latin Grammys or something like that. So you have to make sure that the membership and the organization requires excellence of their members, and not anybody can just walk in and say like, hey, I want to be a member, because that's not going to work. Number 3, evidence of published material about you in professional or major trade publications or other major media. For this criteria, basically it means press. It's very similar to the O1 visa, like press a portion of it as well. So basically you have to show that there is published material about you, and you want to establish that the published material is considered major, like for example like the publication is considered major. So ideally you would love to get like a review from the New York Times or something like that talking about all your major achievements, because you know the New York Times is considered major and it's talking about your achievements as well. You can go for like lesser known like media outlets or something like that, but you're gonna have to prove that at least the media outlet is considered significant or major in the field. Number 4, evidence that you have been asked to judge the work of others either individually or on a panel. So for this one, it could be 2 things. First of all, clear cut, you are on a panel, there's a competition, you're judging the work of others. Alternatively, you could be like on a panel for some kind of like, you know, awards disbursement or like arts funding disbursement or something like that, and people applying for like grant funding, and you get to sort of decide who gets the grant funding. So that's pretty clear cut. Another possibility is that you have been asked to like supervise someone else's work. So like if you're a manager or something like that, that is definitely a possibility. Just bear in mind that immigration does tend to prefer the first over the second, because they are, you know, the second one's a little bit hazy as to like, you know, does this person really judge the work or not? They're sort of like, they're doing it as part of their job, as part of like a supervisor kind of thing. I think it's definitely an argument that you can make because the regulations are not hard and fast on that, but immigration definitely prefers the first one where it's clear and cut, it's a competition, you're judging the work of others, that sort of thing. Number 5, evidence of your original scientific, scholarly, artistic, athletic, or business-related contributions of major significance to the field. So this one's really difficult. Original contribution to the field is really hard to get because you have to basically prove that you have done this amazing thing in your field and everybody else is either copying you or like riffing off of your ideas, or like, you know, citing your work in like a major contribution or something like that. For like arts, I would say, you know, if you're like someone like Martha Graham or Paul Taylor, where you have like reinvented modern dance or something like that, then that would be for you. This is a very difficult one to get. So unless you've really contributed a huge lot to your industry or your field, it's really difficult to get. Number 6, evidence of your authorship of scholarly articles in professional or major trade publications or other major media. Authorship of scholarly articles. So basically what this means is that you have written a bunch of scholarly articles in like trade publications or something like that. It really depends on your field. So like researchers or like scientists, they tend more to be able to do that. Artists less so, but it's not impossible because there are a few like trade journals, like, you know, like the Dramatist Guild has its own publication. So maybe if you do write scholarly articles for that sort of thing, that's a definite possibility for you as well. But you're going to have to prove that, you know, these publications are considered major and like your work is considered scholarly, so other people have cited them and that sort of thing. Number 7, evidence that your work has been displayed at artistic exhibitions or showcases. Your work has been displayed at artistic exhibitions, so that basically focuses it down to people who are only in the arts, and it's very similar to like the O1 visa for the arts criteria where, you know, lead in a production that's distinguished. In this case, it appears that there is no requirement that the person be a lead in the production, but then your work has been displayed at artistic exhibitions. There's some argument as to like whether this only applies to like visual artists as opposed to like theater artists, because, you know, exhibitions, galleries, that tends to be like more of a visual arts kind of person. I would say it's pretty broad definition, but honestly really depends on the immigration officer you get. Some of them really do take a hard view and say like it's only for the visual arts. I would say most of the time they do assume like, for example, if you were performing at Carnegie Hall, maybe it's not at a gallery, maybe it's not really an exhibition, it's really a performance. Some immigration officers have definitely said yes, that is perfectly fine too.
Number 8. Evidence of your performance of a leading or critical role in distinguished organizations.
So leading or critical role in distinguished organizations is also very similar to the O1 visa criteria for the arts, you know, where it's like leading, starring, critical role for organizations. Here it's only leading or critical. So leading basically means you're really high up in the organization. You're like the CEO or the founder or like someone who's like a manager, really high up in the organization. A critical role means that you played a very important role for the organization. In addition to that, you need to prove that the organization is also considered distinguished. So you want to provide documentation about like maybe the history of the organization, the type of work they've done, if they've received any kind of press, if they make a lot of money, in order to really fill out this criteria.
Number 9. Evidence that you command a high salary or other significantly high remuneration in relation to others in the field.
High salary is pretty straightforward, but not always easy to get. I mean, it really depends on the person and your industry and what other people are making at the time. So the way you want to do this is basically provide your pay stubs, your employment letter, as well as some kind of documentation, perhaps from like the Department of Labor, showing that everyone else at your level is making this much and you are making this much. So, you know, for the arts, maybe that's a little bit more difficult to get, but maybe if, you know, if you're in business or science or something, it's quite possible that you are making a higher salary than your peers. So then you would qualify for this criteria.
Number 10. Evidence of your commercial successes in the performing arts.
So for commercial success in the performing arts, that's really difficult unless, you know, you're really at a high level, or like, you know, maybe you're on Broadway or something, or you have like some kind of music album that is like reached across the United States. That's really difficult to prove as well. In terms of commercial success, well, I mean, one way you can do that is in terms of like, well, how much money have you made? What kind of reach have you gotten? And of course, like, you know, it's the performing arts, so the rest of them don't really count. So you need to like sort of focus your efforts more on that and kind of see if you meet this criteria or not. So now that we've gone through like all 10 evidentiary criteria, and assuming that you meet at least 3 out of 10, so when you apply, you don't actually have to only focus on 3, you can focus on more. The idea is that you need to at least meet 3 out of 10. If you meet more, great. You know, let's say you can hit 4, they knock out 1, you still have 3. That's always not a bad option to be. Then we need to move on to part 4. So part 4 is basically the final merits determination. So it's not enough that you prove, you know, 3 out of 10 criteria and therefore you're extraordinary. Immigration is going to take a look at the case as a whole. So they're going to think like, okay, as a whole, is this person considered extraordinary or not? And part of it has to do with the time frame. So for example, if you suddenly got famous in the last 3 weeks, they might think, okay, maybe overall they're not that established because it only happened in the last 3 weeks. So like, but then if you've been doing this for a long period of time, if you have like a career that spans like a decade, 2 decades, that sort of thing, it's much easier for them to find that you are considered extraordinary, and they should, you know, award you the I-140 determination. And after you get the I-140 approval, the next step is applying for the green card. So assuming that you're not doing concurrently. So when concurrently, I mean like you just file all the papers at one shot. Like the 485 or something like that. Sometimes it's not possible to do that, so you wait until the approval notice is done, and then you file for either the I-140 or do like consular processing, and then file for the green card at that point. So at that point, it's pretty much, you know, the easier part, because for the 485 part, it's mostly looking at like, you know, do you have any crimes? Is there any fraud? Have you ever overstayed your visa before? That sort of thing. They don't really look at like the 485, like in terms of like the extraordinary ability part, they don't look at that part anymore. So now has been different from the past. People are required to go for like an adjustment of status interview. So usually that happens, let's say you're doing in the United States, you file your 485, they give you a notice, you go for the interview. It's pretty straightforward. You answer all the basic questions, and if everything goes well, you should be able to get your green card in a couple of months. So that's pretty much it for this video. If you have any questions, I know it's really, really complicated, so you might have a bunch of questions. If you do, please feel free to comment below. I will definitely get to them, and then let's continue this conversation.